Imagine a tiny village in Iraq. It's 2003, dead of night, and the whole place suddenly plunges into darkness. Street lights out, crickets confused. Then in marches an army literally with hundreds of US soldiers sweeping through like they're searching for the world's worst game of hide-and-seek champion. In a farmhouse, one soldier spots something odd, a rope peeking out of the dirt. He tugs it like a magician about to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Except this trick leads to a hidden trapdoor. They ready a grenade, but just before it's tossed, a pair of hands pop up from underground. Out crawls a bearded man, dusty, defeated, and declaring, "My name is Saddam Hussein. I am the president of Iraq, and I want to negotiate." Talk about a dramatic entrance. Cue the famous line broadcast around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. The beginning of the hunt. To understand why Saddam was playing groundhog, let's rewind to March 2003. The United States and a coalition, including the UK, Australia, and Poland, launched an invasion of Iraq. Their mission? According to their leaders, Saddam was hoarding weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological, and maybe even nuclear ones. Intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA and MI6, were convinced that Saddam posed an imminent threat. The smoking gun, they warned, could be a mushroom cloud. Pressure was mounting from the post-9/11 world to act swiftly against perceived threats, and Iraq was at the top of the list. President George W. Bush addressed Americans with a grave warning about these alleged weapons, while figures like Colin Powell doubled down with claims that were later revealed to be, less than accurate. In fact, Powell's speech at the United Nations on February 5, 2003, was laden with claims based on a shaky dossier, one partly plagiarized from a student's thesis paper. When U.S. forces stormed into Baghdad just 3 weeks after the invasion began, they expected to find stockpiles of weapons. Instead, they found looted museums and abandoned government buildings. Saddam, meanwhile, had vanished like a magician, leaving his audience stunned. They celebrated by toppling a massive statue of him in Ferdo Square, though an awkward moment occurred when soldiers initially draped an American flag over it, sparking anger among Iraqis who didn't want their liberators looking like conquerors. The iconic scene was broadcast live around the globe, but it wasn't as spontaneous as it looked. U.S. Marines helped orchestrate the event to symbolize Saddam's fall. The statue's destruction was cathartic for many Iraqis, but it also planted early seeds of resentment against foreign occupation. Cards on the table. How do you make sure your troops know who to chase? You turn your enemies into a deck of playing cards naturally. The U.S. military created a special Most Wanted deck, distributed widely among soldiers in Iraq. Each card featured a different official from Saddam's Ba'athist regime, ranked by importance. Saddam, fittingly, was the Ace of Spades, a symbol historically associated with death in American military culture. Uday and Qusay, notorious for their cruelty, occupied the next slots, making this the deadliest card game ever designed. Soldiers could play poker on breaks and simultaneously memorize who they needed to catch. It was a clever mix of downtime entertainment and battlefield education. By April 2003, nearly every soldier deployed had a copy stuffed somewhere in their pocket, helmet, or rucksack. Many even made it a competition. The more faces you could identify, the bigger your bragging rights. The whole system turned intelligence work into a kind of grim, high-stakes game night, but Saddam's name remained the elusive, unbeatable card. The belief was that Saddam was constantly on the move, never sleeping in one place for more than a few hours. U.S. intelligence theorized that he operated like a guerrilla leader rather than a head of state, traveling with only a small group of loyalists. Reports suggested he was hiding in rural areas and using tribal networks to stay ahead of the hunt. They even believed he might be moving at night disguised as a simple shepherd, a wolf in shepherd's clothing, if you will. It was hide and seek at a national scale, and so far the dictator was winning. Every false tip, every failed raid, made him seem more myth than man. Whispers about Saddam's whereabouts circulated among Iraqis like urban legends. Some said he fled to Syria. Others claimed he transformed into a ghostly figure lurking around Baghdad. Meanwhile, the Americans grew more impatient with every empty bunker and booby-trapped palace they uncovered, a bounty to sweeten the deal. Realizing they needed a little local help, the US slapped a bounty on Saddam's head, $25 million for information leading to his capture, with $15 million each for his sons. Months passed. Tips flooded in. Most were useless. Some were ridiculous. Meanwhile, innocent civilians got caught in the chaos of endless raids. Task Force 20, the elite secretive unit leading the hunt, left behind more broken doors than they could count. The US was desperate, but then, a twist. A man walked into a base in Mosul and claimed he was sheltering Saddam's sons. Skeptical but hopeful, US forces raided his house. And shockingly, he wasn't lying. Uday and Qusay Hussein were holed up there, fiercely resisting capture until a full-on missile strike ended their lives. While the brothers' deaths didn't immediately lead to Saddam, they did something else crucial. They confirmed Saddam was still alive when he released an audio tape mourning his sons. Time to think smaller. Sergeant Maddox's brilliant insight. As the months dragged on with nothing to show for it, Staff Sergeant Eric Maddox decided to do something radical. Think different. Rather than chasing the flashy figures from Saddam's crumbling regime, Maddox reasoned that Saddam wouldn't trust politicians or generals to hide him. No, he'd trust his bodyguards, the only people who were loyal to him personally, not just his title. Specifically, Saddam's security was structured into 3 tiers, with the innermost, the Hamaya, being elite guards who never left his side. Maddox set out to track down these human shields. And where to start? Saddam's hometown, Tikrit. It had been searched before and dismissed, but Maddox wasn't hunting Saddam directly, he was hunting the bodyguards. And many of them, it turned out, came from one family. Al-Muslit, following the fishing line. Interrogations led Maddox to one name again and again: Muhammad Ibrahim Omar. Al-Muslit, a trusted bodyguard, and now a leader in Saddam's underground resistance. Piece by piece, Maddox's team mapped Muhammad's movements. They found Muhammad's son, Muslit, who offered a curious detail. His father loved to go fishing at a private pond near Samarra. A fisherman with an underground resistance network? It sounded absurd, but Maddox remembered something a former housekeeper once said. Saddam loved a dish called masgoof grilled river fish, practically an Iraqi delicacy. Could fishing be Saddam's not-so-secret hobby in hiding? A series of very lucky breaks. The US raided the fish farm, no Muhammad, but they found a fisherman who mentioned an uncle's apartment in Baghdad. In the world's most random sequence of events, the search team stormed the Baghdad apartment based purely on a fisherman's relative's property and found Muhammad Ibrahim himself. Caught. But would he talk? After some negotiation, including a promise of safety for his family, Muhammad cracked. He revealed that Saddam was hiding in the farming village of Ad-Dar, near Tikrit, a hole in the ground. Troops descended on Ad-Dar, checking 2 farmhouses. Nada. They were ready to call it quits. Then Muhammad, under guard, subtly kicked at a rope buried in the ground, like a man hinting very hard that, maybe you should check over there. The soldiers dug. They found the trapdoor. They opened it. And they found Saddam Hussein himself, looking like he had lost a fight with a dust storm and about 20 years of sleep. Game over. President Bush declared, in the history of Iraq, a dark and painful era is over. A hopeful day has arrived. A catch that changed little. You'd think catching Saddam would end the war. It didn't. The US and coalition forces had no solid plan for post-Saddam Iraq, and chaos continued to spread for years. The images of Saddam, captured, disheveled, and subjected to a dental exam, were blasted across global media, meticulously curated to show the downfall of a once mighty tyrant. His hiding hole became a tourist site. Wikipedia endured endless vandalism as users hid Saddam in graphs, tables, and charts as a meme. It was darkly humorous, but also a reminder. Image is everything in war, even long after the battles are fought. The same way Saddam had built a myth of invincibility during his reign, the US now orchestrated the myth of his pathetic capture to shift focus from the messy reality of a war that, by 2004, was already spiraling out of control. If you enjoyed this wild ride through history, make sure to smash that like and hit that subscribe button. Got a thought, a theory, or a Saddam meme you just have to share? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction. See you in the next adventure.